Hello, friends and fellow board gamers. Welcome back to Board Games with Rob. Now, in this video, I'm going to be doing a high-level overview slash review of a game that I just picked up at my FLGS, my favorite local game store, which, by the way, I'm sporting their t-shirt today, is Peculiar Board Games and Hobby. They're in Missouri, just outside of Kansas City. I'm going to be looking at Nova Era. Nova Era is a big box game from CMON, from Cool Mini or Not. It came out just here recently. It came out the same time that Ethnos came out at my game store, the second edition of Ethnos, which is a whole nother video that I'll be doing. I'm not going to spoil it here and talk about my thoughts, but look out for it. I'll be hopefully having that up here in another day or two. But yeah, Nova Era is a big box game from CMON. And let's take a look at it over here on Board Game Geek. The average rating right now, there's 46 ratings as a 7.5. And mechanisms, they say action drafting, dice rolling, tech tree, worker placement with dice workers. That's all right, correct. It's a civilization game. A light, I don't even know that I'd say it's medium weight. A lightweight civilization game that's played over 3 eras, and there's 3 rounds per each era. And I was anxiously awaiting to try this. I got to play it actually yesterday with a good friend of mine, which I'll get into that here in a minute. Right now, I want to talk about the game. It comes with it's played in 3 different eras, and you'll have 3 different rounds each with a scoring round at the end of those 3 rounds. And each era, you're going to have different cards, technologies, as well as people for that era. And let me show you some of those cards, because at its heart, it is a card game. Here is Sejong the Great. Sejong the Great. I want to give you a look at some of the artwork on these cards. Joan of Arc. And some of the technologies. This is from the Era 1 deck. We've got theater. We've got riding. We've got mining. So yeah, what you're going to be doing is, and here's everybody gets a player board, and I was impressed, and I think this is becoming the norm anymore. I say norm, I think Cheers for us. I'm kind of showing my age. I would think everybody knows what Cheers is. It was a sitcom back in the 80s. Norm! Anyway, I'm digressing. But yeah, dual layer boards are becoming the norm these days. So it's got a really nice dual layer player board. At your heart, what you're going to be doing is based upon the player count, and it'll be one more than the player count. You're going to have one of these trays that hold 3 dice. So you'll be pulling from a cloth bag 3 dice. And so in this case, and they're really nice dice, the green, yellow, and black in this case. And you'll be putting them onto your dice tray, and you'll have one more again than the player count. And one of the first things you're going to be doing is drafting an entire tray. You're going to be drafting a tray of 3 dice. And then what's interesting about this game is whatever tray that you don't pick, and I should probably go into and show you some of the pictures here right beside the game. In fact, why don't I do this? I will show you the picture of us playing it. And this is a shout out to my friend Curtis. Thank you for playing the game. He came over to the house and we played a full game last night. Whatever dice tray you don't pick, you'll be using those dice to trigger token down disaster tracks, and each dice represents a particular disaster that might trigger. And so that's neat. You have to be careful. Not only are you wanting to pick dice that you want to use, and I'll get into what some of those actions are that you might use those dice for. But you're also worried about the disasters that you may be leaving the extra tray for. And it's a little bit of a harder decision for the second player or the nth player, depending upon your player count, because they're going to be left with the decision of what disasters to trigger. Whereas the first person that's drawing a tile, isn't so much worried about that. They're more worried about the actions that they're going to have available to them. But yeah, you're going to be moving, if you've got a green 4, then you're going to be moving that token down, the green token down the disaster track 4. And you've only got 9 to work with. So you can very easily, and if you've got 2 green die, you're going to be adding up that number and you're going to be going down that disaster track, and then things will happen once that disaster triggers. However, another really kind of cool thing that'll happen is you will add up your total. So let's say that I had the 5, the 2, and the 4 there, and anything over 10, so in this case I've got 11, so 1, you will go up on this what's it called? The unrest track on your board. So you start at 0 and then you build unrest, and anything over that 10 delta, you're going to be adding to this unrest. And once you get into this 7, 8, 9, and maybe even the, gosh forbid, the 10, you're going to have civil war break out. So that's bad. So yes, you want those high values. However, you got to be careful, because if you take them, you're going to be setting up unrest. So then what you're going to be doing is you're going to have a display out of your technology cards. You can see it out here on the table based upon player count. And then you'll also have a display of personalities out here on the table as well. Again, based upon player count. And then based upon the color of the die, you're going to be able to buy different things. So for example, with your green die, you might be able to purchase this for 6 irrigation. Or you might want to invest, get poetry, or maybe you want to go sailing oh my gosh, I'm having a brain thing, a malfunction. Not investigate, but research, sailing. So you'll be using your die, and then one of the other actions that you can do is let's say that you have a 4 yellow. Well, one of the actions you can do is get 4 resources, money in the case of yellow. Or if it's blue, you'll get books, and welfare if it's green. So you'll be getting these resources to add on to your player board. That's just one of the things you can do. Then you can purchase a card that's out on the table with the respective die, and then you can add to that the resources that you've stored up. You can even spend a die that doesn't match the color of the card and then just purely use resources. So that's the purchasing of the technology. You can spend die to drag down your unrest, if it's the black die. You can also use the black die to purchase personalities, which are people. Those are the people that I was showing you, in the very beginning. And Joan of Arc, this is a era 2 person, but for 4, you can purchase her. Now, another cool thing is you can overspend on these, on the personalities. So if I was to spend a 6 to purchase her, which is a 4, that delta of 2, I could bring down my unrest track by 2. And that's probably the most efficient way to get your track down, your unrest track down. Another way of doing it is by spending the die entirely. So you can spend a black die and it's going to lower it 1, just 1. So you could have a 6 and spend that die and it's just going to bring it down 1. So there I've talked about 2 actions that you can do on your turn right there. You can research a technology and play it out onto your tableau. Again, you'll be playing it above or below the respective tracks here and building up kind of a tableau of technologies. Um, on the cards that are out there, you can only purchase the bottom layer. So whatever that bottom layer is, that's all you have access to. So think like Seven Wonders, right? Duel, where you only have access to that bottom layer, and then only by purchasing that card into your hand, you don't have a hand limit. So that's an action. You can spend a die and take a card and put it into your hand of any color. And then you've exposed the next card up that you can actually research and add to your tableau. So that's another action. You can research territories, which only come into play in Era 2 and 3, and or that not research, but expand territories. So you have a territory and you can expand that. What's really neat about these cards, let me get into an era, maybe 2 or 3. Yeah, so like here's an example of a era 3 technology. This is skyscrapers. And if you look at it, when you play a card, you got to check for things becoming obsolete. So by playing skyscrapers, you're making castles, masonry, and city walls obsolete. So if anybody has played those particular cards in their tableau, they got to put them in their past. And that is an actual spot on your player board that you're going to place them into your past. And they're out of the game. And you keep them there because there's certain cards that might trigger based upon the amount of cards in your past. Now, if you make something obsolete that you own, then you can actually get victory points for that. You're upgrading a technology. But and this was kind of funny, is it's kind of a take that mechanism. You're not doing it purposely, but if your opponents have those cards, they just have to trash them and get rid of them. So it was always kind of a little laugh when we would play a card and make something obsolete. Um, so that's kind of a unique mechanism of the game, is making things obsolete over time. So yeah, you are building up your civilization, your tracks, and after you've done that 3 rounds. So a round is comprised of spending all 3 of your die, and once you've done that, then you'll do another round. You'll put all the die back into the bag. You'll draw out 3. You'll make your choice of your dice plate and then spend your die. And after you've done that 3 times, then you'll go into a scoring round. And essentially what you're going to be doing is scoring points for cards that you've played, and then majority of cards. So whoever has the most green cards or yellow cards, they'll score points. And then cards themselves will have um, point ways to score points. So when you play a card, you'll either have an instant effect or you'll have something that will, and I skipped over this, there's a production phase. So after you've placed your 3 die, you're going to check for disasters, and then bad things will happen. You may have to flip over a card. So if you have a green disaster, then you're going to have to flip over, destroy one of your green cards. And that's an action. You can actually, it's not that hard to recover them. So as an action, you'll spend a die, which just means discarding it, and then you can flip over, reflip back over two of any card. So they're not hard to recover from. But yeah, and then production, you'll go into a production. Any of your cards that have a production symbol, it's a wheel, will generate more resources. And that's it. You'll go over 3 eras. You'll clear your tableau of era cards. Your cards will persist unless something becomes obsolete. So your tableau will remain over time. You'll clear out the center board, as well as and the personalities will die. They will go into your past. So any era 1 personality that you have in play will then become obsolete, will go into your past, and then you'll have to recruit or obtain a new personality every era. All right, that at its heart is Nova Era. What do I like and what do I don't like about the game? I absolutely hated the rule book. It's a short rule book. It's very easy to read, but it's missing a lot. I've got a number of questions I had to ask on Board Game Geek to get answers to. Things weren't always intuitive. We were looking for the forums over on Board Game Geek to constantly to see. Answers to questions that we had when we were playing the game. I didn't like the rule book. It Right out of the box, there's already 5 misprints on cards. In fact, if you go to CMON's site, there's it tells you to go ahead and print uh, not proxies, but yeah, proxies for the cards and glue them to the card. Or in the case of me, I sleeve my cards so you can just slide it in there. Now, some of them aren't bad, some of them were misspellings, but two or three of them were critical. They had the wrong icon. Yes, you can go in and pen in the change. I mean, it's not hard to fix, but if you're like me, you take pride in your game and you don't want to be marking up your game, and it'd have been nice if those so hopefully that'll be fixed in a second edition or second printing, perhaps, if it was to get one. What else didn't I like? I didn't like in round 3, in era 3, you tended to have a high price for things, and yet if it was hard to afford things, I think, in the third era. And maybe that was just us playing things wrong, but the price of things, maybe we weren't storing up resources as we should have been, or maybe we shouldn't have been buying cards, and rather than that, storing up our resources. Maybe we weren't doing our engines the right way. I don't know, but it seemed a little more difficult to play cards in the third era, and the choices didn't seem, I don't know. There was just something missing, and I think it would probably warrant a second or third or fourth play on this. I have played this only twice, so it probably, I probably it's lacking from getting it to the table a number of times. The artwork, it's very simple artwork. I mean, the tokens are just this. I mean, they're thick, so they're good quality, but they're really simple. The artwork on the cards, I'll leave that up to you to decide. I mean, some time was put into these. I think you have to like that particular style, maybe. I didn't really care for it. I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't, I don't know, on par with something I'd say is excellent. Um, so I mean, take that with a grain of salt. It might be your cup of tea. What did I like? Oh man, I really I thought there was a solid game here. The whole thought about picking your tray of dice, and then that dice having not only an impact upon these disaster tracks, but also on your own player board on the one that you picked, having to mitigate the choosing high dice, having to decide between getting high dice values and then anything minus 10, you're going to go up on your own unrest track, which once you go into the red on the unrest, you have to die down your pip down your dice by 1. And if you go to Civil War, other bad things happen. I think you have to get rid of a die. I don't know. There's a little bit of confusion still in my mind. Again, that's because of me not playing it more than once or twice. Is the unrest track and the Civil War track, and there's a black track on the game board that bad things happen if you. I think that's the Civil War. Um, anyway, no, that's not so. Anyway, I'm getting things mixed up in my head. That's my fault, not yours or the designers. Um, but yes, the decisions you have to make with not only picking the tray that you're going to use, but then the tray that's left over having impacts on the game, that's really cool. I do like how the cards that you pick, I mean, they have some interesting things that they do. Mainly it's getting resources or victory points. Um, but kind of building your own tableau of a civilization was neat. Um, So mechanically, it had some fun things in there. It didn't reinvent the wheel, though. It did provide some new things I hadn't seen before. Um, so what would I rate it? Right now, without having played a lot of it, it would probably be a 6, a 5.5, 6.5, somewhere in there. Um, and I'm weighing in everything. So the component quality, the rule book, the play. Am I really pulled to want to play this right away again? No. Would I play it? I'd give it at least another shot or two to see if I did things a little differently, if it would have a different outcome. So anyway, I've talked long enough about it. That is Nova Era. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's not a lot of videos out of this, so hopefully this might aid in your decision as to whether or not you want to get this to the table. So again, this is Rob. I wish you the best of days and plenty of companionship combos and tabletop triumphs. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.